In this episode of NZ Business Owners Podcast, we interview a software developer that's been doing it for over a decade, specializing in helping optimize the health sector as well as farmers make food more efficiently. If you ever want to understand what's behind the health system, why it struggles, why it can be inconsistent, or if you actually own a business like that yourself, this will teach you how to streamline and operate your business so you can do things effectively and quickly.
What's some of the worst things you've seen in the health industry in terms of efficiencies?
Let's not go that route. There's still a bunch of businesses that use faxes, and that's probably the biggest issue I see right now because, I mean, it's not only reliability, but also, the fax prints out something and then just drops under the desk and you'll never see it. But it's such a common thing in health that, we still have a service where we have a form on a website, and that form sends a inquiry to a printer to print it out. So that's what happens, and it's just because the manual processing is so embedded in health that it's just really hard to take it out. And we're working with one of the businesses that has many people manually processing inquiries daily. So, and it'll be in hundreds, where they just literally come to work and all you work is you have one screen and another screen, and then you just retype from one screen to another screen. That's your job.
How does that happen? How do we end up in a place where we're using faxes and we're printing things out and then typing them?
I think it's a legacy, and I always like a comparison. I have a mate who's just for fun learned some really ancient language, and he's really smart. Don't get me wrong. It's and he learned the programming language that nobody uses. So you will just Google it, and even Google will be like, "What is this?" And he's charging something like $450 an hour, and he's getting paid really well, doing almost nothing. And I said, "How does that work?" And he says, "Well, listen. One of my clients is a nuclear power plant. So I can either fix their bug for $4,500 in a day, or they would need to rebuild everything for $45 million. So that thinking is why we're here. It's easier to patch the hole. I mean, look at our holes in New Zealand, It's easier to patch the hole than rebuild the road because it's a short-sight thinking, really.
I mean, it can't be that hard. I know, like, when you get in the route of using Salesforce and then you spend 2 years just learning how to click a button. But, like, some CRMs aren't that hard. You know what I mean? You just go, I hate Salesforce.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah, that's true. And it's some of it is people, and some of it is, I guess, repetitiveness. Really, you just come to work, you do the same thing every day. You can't really see past that point. And it's not really like I don't really have to see that far. I mean, my mom worked entire life in one company. Like, I know that it blows people's mind, but she got 40th anniversary gift, and you kind of like, how did you last that long? But it's just so some of those things is just in people's mindset. It's just what they used to. That's what they know, and they really don't want to change because it's just, it went too far. And I think with health, another thing is just a lot of regulation, a lot of red tape. So, changing a small thing in health is just very expensive. And that's fair enough because, you don't want, a picture of your X-ray, say.
I was like, well, what are you going to do?
Going around the other internet and then saying that you have something, that you don't want people to know. So that's fair enough. And security and privacy is a very, very big thing. But I feel that a lot in health and I think I mentioned that before when we had a chat, in all industries like farming, it's just that expertise they have for many years that is just manual, and they rely on it. I'll give you a good example. Farming. Let's switch to farming. Good example. Farmers would say, for the last 40 years, I've been farming the cow taking the cow to the green grass and then taking it back, milking, worked for the last 40 years. And then the hurricane, whatever we have, cyclone this year comes in, call it Marie. Cyclone Marie comes in.
Why are they
they're
always
"Shit,
women? Did you ever think about that? It's kind of messed up.
I know,
Anyway, so carry on.
because they're angry.
Oh, shit.
Um,
You just got cancelled.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna get cancelled. The hurricane comes in and then it just takes away the grass. I don't know, the landslip takes away the grass, and they're like, well, what do I do now? So the rapid change that happens in the world right now is not only technology, it's also the climate, it's also, people. The teenagers, if you ever watch a teenager, how they use technology is mind-blowing. And general change is so quick that some people just can't fathom that, hey, I need to adapt to it in order for me to survive. And that farmer would say, well, it's just one-off, can't be that bad. And then the next year, Cyclone, I don't know, Veronica comes in and does the same thing. And they're like, how did it happen? For the last 40 years, it didn't happen. What happens now? Well, if you don't adapt the technology, looking at a phone to see the forecast, then, you're not going to survive. And that's it. And it's not rocket science. You just use technology to solve your business problems. It's the same with health. The change happens so quickly. The change happens and then information. And then the story, I love that story, where my friend is a doctor and she says people just look up their symptoms on the internet and I show up and I say, I know what I have. And then the doctors kind of have to deal with it, So tapping into that, well, how about I connect you with the information? I will also send you information in digital form. I will also send you a link to what you have. I will also send you a link to read more information about your drug. Then you connect to the user and then you feed them the right information rather than them going to Twitter or X now and then just looking up all of those symptoms and be like, hey, I've got a alien in my body, So, the information is something that changes the world and changes the business. The right type of information for the business is very important, and controlling that information. Again, coming back to health, you can't control a fax machine, right? A fax machine is between one person and another person, and then that second person forgets to say that to a surgeon, and suddenly you're amputating left leg rather than the right leg. I know it's extreme, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, that happens. I'm just curious. So, like, you come into a health thing or a doctor thing or chiropractor, whatever health thing you mean, and then so what do you think about first? How do you identify the problem, the repetitive tasks? What's the first thing you do?
Yeah, so a lot of it is the repetitive tasks and a problem, obviously a problem, but it happens that industry don't know about a problem because they've never seen a solution. So imagine that you're a bookkeeper and you've always been doing a Excel spreadsheets because you've never seen zero, and you don't know that you have a problem because you've always been doing Excel spreadsheets. Now suddenly shows you a zero and says, oh shit, I do have a problem. So so a lot of it is just educating businesses in terms of abilities for technology to help them, and some of it is just finding the repetitive tasks. As I said, one of the most common things is admission form. A lot of businesses, a lot of health businesses and hospitals still do that manually in a paper. And if you do it on a paper, someone will have to retype it. Let's be honest, it won't be in a paper. And if that's the business model, that's fine. Keep it, but then introduce OCR, which is optical technology when you take a photo and reads the character recognitions and retypes it for you. Suddenly you saved 5 minutes in every form. Happens with us as well. Some business comes to us and they say, well, listen, I can't do that because my employees have a flip phone. How am I supposed to ask them to install an app, right? And then you say, okay, well, stick with paper. That's fine. Use the AI to read the paper. That's it. Like, you can't do anything about it. So it's finding what we can fix, but also educating people of what we've already fixed in the past. Yeah, and then you'll be surprised how many people don't know about ChatGPT even.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'll be curious on the OCR thing. Like, there's a massive problem with insurance advisors, a bit of a side tangent, where they get notified by all these different product providers with a PDF and also has a customer number, and it will be the change in terms on a client's policy that needs to be updated in their CRM, and then also the client notified as well. How is it hard to set up that OCR thing? Like,
Nah, right? Realistically, both Google and Amazon right now have a OCR, call it service. So you actually don't need to train the model. Back in the days, you would have to do a train the model in terms of character recognitions, image recognitions, whatever you needed to for the AI to recognize. You need to train it. Right now, there's so many models that you can use in pay per recognition that it's easy. So the only issue right now, for instance, with if you had a insurance form, is you would get a number of, you can imagine that you have a form with 20 different fields. And what it does is essentially just returns the number of characters that it returns. So essentially sentences or words, and it returns it in a format that it thinks it should be grouped. Now, if you want to put it into other system, you might need to train the right connection between the your system values that they expect, which is, for instance, a name, and the value on the on what is called a JSON file, and that would return your say Amazon or Google would return it, and it will say, I have this field, and it always comes as third. So always comes as a third because I recognize it third. So so then you say third field goes to the name. So that sort of mapping and training you would still need to do, but it's not as hard as it used to be. It used to be, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars projects. I believe that even this year, both Google and Amazon dropped half the prices of optical recognition.
yeah, I was playing around with the thing where it's Google AI Studio and it just talks to me and tells me what to do and it reads the screen. I don't know how I feel about it, but so how would you actually create something like that? So what are the tools that Amazon or Google have, and then what are you what is the other thing that you're training to map the fields with?
So you definitely need a little bit of developer's help, but there is something called Vertex AI on Google, which is they answer to OpenAI, put it this way. And while OpenAI is better trained and in general returns better results, Vertex AI has way better console. So you can actually go to the console without being a developer, and then you can just start playing around and creating new prompts, a heat, which is part of AI, which is part of the model of how you're going to approach your prompt. What else you can do? You can select the right model. So there's a lot of things that you can do yourself without having a developer. By saying that, even if it works, it will work in a console. So if you wanted to make an app out of it, you still need the developer. In terms of the tools, I would definitely start with OpenAI or ChatGPT. The reason for that is because it's very accessible, and it lets you understand how AI operates. And again, good story. I like stories. I introduced ChatGPT to my mom, and I say, "Listen, this is what it can do. Drop the document, read it, summarize." She's like, "Wow!" And then I, ask it to just say, "What would you do?" And it says, "Oh, generate some sort of document." So I ask it, and it generated the document, and she's like, "Wow, it's amazing. Now you do it." And she sits in front of the keyboard, and she's like, "Explain my rates." And I'm like, "Well, you need to give it like some more of context, And she's like, "No, I thought it was AI. Can do anything." So while ChatGPT is amazing, it takes people a while to understand what prompt engineering is. that you not always get 100% accurate information, but also exactly what you want. And it's a great way to familiarizing yourself with, I guess, future of AI, how they work, because you do need to communicate with them in the right way in order for them to understand what you want. And it's the same way for OCR. You can just ask it to return characters, and it will just return a bunch of characters. It's it's a little bit complex how AI OCR works, but in general, it just recognizes one single letter every time, and then it just puts it together and the next steps.
Sure.
So understanding those basics sometimes just lets you to think, okay, cool. Well, now that I understand it, can I do this easily, or do I have to do a lot of work in order to get somewhere?
We'll get back to health. I just get excited when I get someone smart about this stuff. Okay, so what about one of the other pain of existence?
What's that?
Yeah, it's the guy in the back with the big sword, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah.
So the other big pain for financial advisors is creating a plan. And a plan isn't that hard. You should get this insurance or this KiwiSaver or this investment product. Here's the projections. So they're just numbers you put in, and then it can project out. And then you pull together what products they have and their personal objectives, and you put it in a document. So what I'd love to be able to do is, while we're on a call, it transcribes, it gets sent somewhere, it gets formatted so the personal objectives are there. And then while we're on the call, we're putting in numbers and products on the call. So that's how they calculate stuff. You've got this product, you've got that product. And then at the end, you push a button and it merges it in a document and sends a summary email. How would you do that?
Easy. That's actually easy. By saying that, I have a feeling that this is something that my friend is doing in his startup. I don't want to drop a promotion, but
you can if you want. Plug them. We have a lot of advisors that listen.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Symphony is doing that. With Sean Quincy.
How do you spell it?
SIMFUNNI. And Sean Quincy is doing something similar for mortgage brokers. Insurance brokers. And in general, the concept is very simple. And software or in web or wherever you think, the programming, whatever language you have, is based on logic. It's all mathematics if you can think about it underneath. But if you go to the helicopter view of writing a code, it's all logic. So you have to say, if this happens, then you do this, and if something else happens, you do something else, and then you just do references to it. It's called functions, classes, objects. You can do a lot of that. So in your case, what you want is just to have a simple database of information that you just fill up. And when you fill up the database of some sort of information, so let's say, here's all the conditions that you need in order to have insurance, then you pull that information from in the right order to specific, call it functions. And that functions will be calculate the risk. And that functions would only need, you might fill up 40 fields, 100 fields, or probably knowing insurance, probably 100,000 fields. But you put say 100 fields, and that's everything from shoe size to color of your jacket. Knowing insurance again, it probably worse than mortgage. And when you pull specific action, you only need some of the information. So for risk, you probably need age, location. Not sure, not insurance person, but I don't know, probably dependents. And you pull that information. Then you run it across some matrix, and your matrix would say anyone from 20 to 25, low risk. 25 to 35, okay, the risk increases. 0 dependence, no risk. 1 dependence, risk increases. Put it together, return the score. You have one information returned. And then you put all of the information back, and then you fill up, literally, essentially, you have a document and says, okay, cool, that person has score 6.5 out of 10 of risk. They quote is that much across the entire matrix of pricing, and that's it. And fill out all of the information that they put in. Here it is, a document for a quote. Send it out to the user. Yeah, easy. Sounds easy. It's probably not that easy, but in terms of the architecture, as easy. What's difficult, it comes when you try to do something smart with it. And I always say AI, and it's not really AI. The deep AI is very expensive at the moment. But even statistical modeling, even simple statistics, saying, okay, cool, now I've done it 1,000 times, and I have 1,000 users, and the average age is 45. And out of those people, everybody above 45 claimed 3 times more than younger people. So now using statistics, how can I put my pricing together so I don't lose money? That's where the magic comes in, because, everything else is relatively easy. The magic comes in, what can you do with the data? It's, I'm sure you've heard it a million times. Tesla is not a car company, it's a data company. Every car just sends the videos of the whatever they do, and they process it, and they train the model for self-driving. And, while they rich and well company doing very well, really when they solve self-driving, they're just going to dominate the market.
Yeah, we're insane. What tools are you using to do that then? To, like, in that use case, what are you combining in it?
So
I'll probably interview your friend.
In terms of the programming, so it's many ways to tackle it, but realistically, you just need to write the software for it. So you would start with a database, and it could be anything from MySQL, PostgreSQL, or MS SQL. You structure the database to whatever fields you have. I say the database is always the best represented in Excel. So if you wanted to put absolutely everything from your user data in Excel, that's your very, very basic idea of how your database looks going to look like. And I know it's simplifying, but not everybody knows deep IT. So so once you have the database, then it's just coming down to doing a simple backend programming and front-end programming. Backend programming, pick a language, could be anywhere from Python, PHP is popular in New Zealand, .NET, anything Microsoft, and then you just go to front end, which React is very, very popular right now. It's easy to learn. It's what Facebook is made of, and then you just put it together. Just in theory, you could do it with a bunch of tools that are available, and that would be anywhere from Zapier connecting to different other things. But what it can do is essentially what I've seen in the past is low code or no code solutions that you have way too many tools, and then you're just getting lost of what the problem is. So you find a problem. Once it gets complicated, it's really good for proof of concept. Low code and no code, very good for proof of concept. But once it gets complicated, and you have to find an issue, it's really hard to pinpoint of where the issue comes from, because you have so many tools, and every tool will be like, nah, I just pulled the data from the other tool and it was wrong. And then the other tool will be like, nah, I sent the right data. This was the other tool that pulled it wrong. So yeah, it gets complicated.
Yeah, imagine the solution, if you know software, it wouldn't be too hard. Like, you have unstructured data, you pull it together, and then you just, like, I could do a half-cocked job with the tools I've got, but it wouldn't be like your mate. Maybe I'll interview them. Videos, back to health. Yeah. So you come in, and now you've identified repetitive tasks. Is there like a suite of tools that you guys use, or is it always just you're building from scratch, or you're using templates, or?
Yeah, so the majority we build from scratch, and it's really depending on the solution. And the reason why I'm saying that is because as any business working for a while, you would just have a set of tools that you've already done. And so if you're a car mechanic and you need that one screwdriver that opens engine of Ferrari, and you buy it for $5,000, when the second Ferrari comes in, you don't have to buy that screwdriver. So it's a little bit the same with the software. After a while, you just have a set of tools. In how many ways you can solve logging. People log in and log out and create an account, register, and fill up their details in the same way in wherever you go. So that sort of tool. So we kind of have to. Everybody would have some sort of tools where they have already done and they can just repeat, and that helps. But by saying that, the rest would be probably relatively custom. And that's just because all it takes is, let me take it back. Not custom if it will be the same sort of client. If there was a second insurance company doing exactly the same thing, then essentially you just repeat, copy paste. But then it becomes a product. It's not a software development. Now you're just selling a product. But if it's the first time, then yes, then you would just start from scratch and then just potentially reuse some elements like, I don't know, blog posts. Cool. How many times can I do a blog post? Title, content, image, done. Maybe date.
What makes you not productize it? Is it because you're getting referrals and they're from different people, so you can't really stay on a specific thing? Or
we do have a product as a company. It's called Muscle App, and it works for aquaculture farmers. But the product company thinking is completely different. So service company, you come in, you can do whatever, you can do everything. The moment you become product company, then entire company structure becomes different, because from project management and software delivery, you turn into customer support and customer relationship, because you really need to grow customer base and make sure that they're satisfied with whatever you do. So part of why we don't go further into product is because of that limitations we have, which is we really software people. And we would need to turn into more, I guess, support or like a customer relationship, and try to talk to a developer and say, hey, the client would like to talk to you, and they're just going to shut the door and turn off the light and then not talk to you for a week. Yeah, so it's a little bit different. And I think I'm sure you've seen that also with the startup community. When you see a startup people, when they go into product development, they just, go to Queenstown and little hut on a mountain, close themselves, take a Starlink, close themselves down for the next 3 months, and they do magic, or Silicon Valley, some sort of lake in Utah, and they just hardcore programming. 3 months later, they, thin, barely eaten, and come back and they say, hey, we have a product, we go. The agency or software company developers, they just chill. They're just like, cool, I might just do an image today. I might, they'll do some software development. It's a different type of people that work for those sort of companies. And by saying that, it's a different reward, right? If you work in a startup, you might get crappy money at the beginning as a software developer, but in the end, you might have 1% of Facebook, right? On the other hand, in a software development company, you have a good money, but it's pretty static. You might have like inflation, and you might get seniority a little bit, but it's always going to be a glass ceiling. So what I'm trying to say is really hard to turn one company to another. So when we did a product, we can actually spin up another company.
Yeah, interesting. So, okay, let's go. You come in, what are some custom solutions that they didn't know were a problem, and seems to be a consistent problem that you customize?
Good question. Admission form to the hospitals is probably one of the most repetitive things that we do. It's such an easy solution. It's really not a rocket science. And while it's still in many cases it just goes to an email and someone still has to retype it, there is a possibility in some cases where it just goes directly to the patient management system and you don't have to do anything. It's just patient comes in and it says, cool, I have all the data. And there's other stuff like bookings is probably one of the most common for a lot of businesses. They kind of I see that with health all the time. I know we talked about it before, but you just get a receptionist, and it's just such a common thing because I have it with my own GP. You just pick up the phone and then just ring them and say, "Can I have an appointment at 9 a.m?" Oh, we can't 9 a.m. You can do 10. I'm like, oh, I have a meeting at 10. Can you do 11? No, we can't do 11. And then you just suddenly, waste 2 hours talking and trying to find a common time versus, just put it on a website. And even Calendly, something super simple, put it on a website. And then suddenly you save so much time of your own, and then also frustrations of the clients, because let's be honest, with the current health system, by the time you get an appointment, you're either healthy again or you're just dead. So the problem is solved. Who thought that it's a good idea to tell somebody, oh, you can have an appointment in 4 weeks? Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, my stomach is really, really painful right now, but in 4 weeks, probably is going to be still painful just for you,
Yeah, what are you
So-
seeing? Like, are you seeing that? Like, how long you've been working with health people, and has there been a
for
bigger
a long
struggle?
time.
Has it gotten
Yeah,
worse?
it is definitely worse, and COVID helped that, and I guess I've been working with health for probably 7-8 years now with some large companies, and I think the problem was longer than that, but I think COVID uncovered it, which is a lot of it was digitization. A lot of it was when COVID came in and so everybody suddenly was like, oh, shit, let's do all of those systems. Let's solve all of the health problem. I'm like, yeah, sure. It's like the famous saying, you can't give birth to a child with 9 women in 1 month. But we did that. We literally tried to do that over COVID. We suddenly were like, shit, let's throw all of this money and build all of the systems in the world. And it actually makes it worse because we just did the panic solution. I don't think health, one of the things that I would do, if I was in health, and God Almighty and the Minister of Health sees this and gives me a call, but please don't. But the one thing I would do is just do a countrywide GP booking system. Because honestly, if you're sick and you have an appointment with your GP over the next 4 weeks, I would pay $100 to go to GP who's next door but has a free appointment. But I don't know that. I don't see that unless I call freaking 55 and a half GPs, and then suddenly someone's going to be like, oh yeah, I can take you tomorrow. Cool, because I'm almost dying here, And then solution is, cool, well, our GPs are too busy. Technology is not going to help. So if you're feeling unwell, go to emergency department. And how does that work? We all know because it's all over the news. 6 hours wait, 8 hours wait. Why? Because every GP sends you to an emergency department because they have too long bookings. So what's the easiest way to solve it? Well, just do nationwide bookings. Maybe, just maybe, I'm in Wellington. Maybe there is a doctor in Invercargill who can pick up a Zoom call and then just, help me out. Maybe.
Yeah, okay, you're getting fired up. You got some ideas. Okay, so let's say you're Minister of Health and you're in charge of the technology officer. What are we changing and how are we teeing it up?
I would definitely do better the communication system, and I know they're trying to do it better now. But genuinely, if you want to test a system, go to the hospital emergency department in Hamilton and try to pull your data from GP, all of your history, and then you'll see how they're going to scratch their head. Eventually, they're going to get that. But the fact that we so decentralized, and I know that Health NZ is supposed to do that, is problematic because we're such a small country, and it's so easy to put everything together. But the issue is with what we discussed at the beginning. There's so many opposition of, well, I'm 71 years old. Why do I have to change the system? I'm really like my Windows 95. And then suddenly you come to them with a solution and says, well, that solution doesn't work on my computer. Well, how about you update the laptop? Oh, no, because it has a different keyboard, because my keyboard is not QWERTY. It's, I don't know, whatever. It was invented in 1980. So it's going to be painful. And, arguably, and we're going into politics, change is not sexy. At some point, you just need to put your foot down and just be like, I don't care what you say. We're doing this. We're doing the change. And that change would have to be in centralized management of the health system in New Zealand. Because I lived in Palmerston North during COVID. And shit you not, there was one GP in entire Palmerston North who was admitting new patients. So when I moved to Palmerston North, I was like, I called one GP and I was like, can I come? And they're like, nah. Another one, nah. So by the 5th call, I was like, what is going on? And they said, oh, there's only one clinic that takes patients. This is like 80,000 people city. So I'm like, well, first of all, why did I have to call 5 other GPs to find it out? And second of all, well, if everybody else is too busy, and one is taking, well, how about we just spread the busyness to all of the partners to North, and suddenly everybody has one space. Can we do that? Of course we can. Right? Every GP has one space suddenly, rather than one GP has too many spaces. It's a proper technology management where you find the right data for the right informed decisions. At the moment, we're just constantly fighting fire, I guess, in health technology.
And what's the challenge in terms of getting access to data? Is it like you got these all different legacy systems that don't talk to each other, or what sort of issue?
Yeah, that's part of it. We're working with one vertical where a lot of systems have to communicate with each other. And believe it or not, they were just using fax until recently, and they updated it now. But then again, you have those. This is a good example. Patient management system. I don't know what you're using. I'm using something called My Health, and it's great. But now these guys, My Health, have their own standard. And then if you're a if you're a startup, you want to solve that problem. You want to do a booking for all of the GPs. So then suddenly you're trying to innovate something that government can't. So I'm going to innovate. And then you go to this My Health, and they kind of like, cool, here is what you do to put the data into our system. And then you go to another patient management system, and it says, what do I do? And it says, oh, this is completely different. We don't use My Health way. We just do it this way. So the lack of somebody coming in and saying, hey, technology should be in this format because we're all using health and everybody should have accessibility to innovate. Suddenly, everybody has a different way of integrating. So if you want to integrate with patient management system, say there's 10 patient management systems, you have to do 10 different integrations. It's just a little bit ridiculous.
So what's actually involved in running a practice or a hospital? Like, so you've got this part of it, and then this system you need for this. Like, what's it like? I'm just curious how it runs now.
Well, I'm not a doctor, first of all,
Yeah.
and not a health professional. I'm a software developer and work with health companies. They do have their own systems, and one of them would be your patient management system. So this is all of the way all of your information is stored. One of them would be a lab system. So anytime that you do a blood test or urine test, or you do X-ray or anything like that, they separate systems. So that's where the integrations comes in. And then you have you can have a patient management system where you can access through web. So we call My Health. I'm pretty sure it's called My Health, the one that I'm using. It's okay-ish, and I'm going to get canceled again, probably called from the lawyer too. But what it allows you is to see some of your information personally. So then you suddenly have a user has access, doctor has an access, X-ray person has an access, and blood test person has an access, and maybe you've been to ER, so hospital has an access. So now you have your own information in 5 different places. So all of those information have to talk to each other, and that's the problem. The problem is because they don't. And when they do, 3 of them might, 2 of them don't, but those 2 might work with one more, and then suddenly you just have a mishmash of information. It's not uncommon for health professional just to need to receive an information, and that receive it's either something called HL7, which is a format of how they send patient information, but sometimes it's just an email. Sometimes they just be like, hey, I just got this person for X-ray. What are you really here for? And then they just get an email. Hey, here is the form that you need. Rather than, hey, can we just load that information to X-ray person's system? Yeah, it's a little bit messy. I don't think it's New Zealand problem, the messiness is worldwide problem, but the messiness that is easily avoidable because all it is just Ministry of Health saying, hey, from now on, this is a standard of information that every patient needs to have in every system. Anybody wanting to pull that information, cool, they can pull that HL7 file to their system, and that's it. Off you go, and then do whatever you need to do.
So what would be possible? I'd be curious. Like, let's say, you went all AI and you had all the best and you had billions of dollars of budget. What would you build, and like how exciting would that be? Like, so you could have the data.
Well, I would probably go Elon Musk way, build a spaceship, but realistically, health is probably like I'm really excited about health and in a way, and farming, and also two things that can be solved with AI without rocket science, because what happens is you suddenly have, if we have them in one format, suddenly you have a billion of information that is repeatable. You drank ink. Cool. I'm sure there is a million of idiots who drank ink today. When you show up to the hospital, I don't have to think of what neutralizes ink. I can just look at the previous records and ask AI, cool, can you just scan all of the ink people? How do they react to this particular drug? And what's the best solution? And there are startups already doing that, but they faced, and there's one even in New Zealand I met actually, but they face exactly the same issue as I mentioned. You have the data is so decentralized that if you suddenly want to solve an issue, well, you can solve the X-ray issue, you can solve the blood test issue, or you can solve the GP issue, or you can solve prescription issue, because those are in a different systems separately. So you can suddenly only do a little thing. You can't just connect it, all of it, unless you're a hospital, because hospital is the only place where they do everything.
Interesting. So it's basically a unified system and then a distribution of appointments so that you can actually get to see someone in an easy way.
Yeah. And if you have $1 billion, I mean, just run. It's not really AI. It's just it's just simple mathematics. Cool. I have 31 age patient, female, pregnant, bleeding from a nose. Cool. Look at the last 20 years. Surely there's hundreds of the same ways, right? Here is what the most likely it is. Based on hundreds of patients over the last 20 years, we didn't, scan, ultrasound, whatever, again, not a doctor, all of the tests that they needed. And out of them, 62% came up with this. 32% came out with this. And suddenly from all of your medical school, she can have anything from Ebola to just somebody punched her in the face, so she's bleeding. Suddenly you're just narrowing it down to 2 or 3, because this is mostly on statistics. And sure, it's going to get it wrong, but at least those most common cases you're going to solve quicker, right? And then so you free up patients, because suddenly you don't have to do 500 tests to find out what's happening. Maybe you just need to do that one that will confirm that 61%.
Is it like a barrier? Like, do they have like client files that are paper and then that's going to all have to be scanned in the system, or were they made to actually put everything so the hospitals have access? Like, how do you actually find the information you need to be a good doctor?
That's a good question. I would hate to be a doctor, because I sometimes see how they just go with with a paper and iPad and they just go back to the computer. The amount of admin the doctors do right now, I actually don't know why is it so necessary, but the amount of, honestly, I don't know. It's 2024, nearly 2025. Why don't they just have a headset when they just say, okay, this patient has a high elevated heart rate, looks blue, probably not enough oxygen. Please don't listen to me on medical advice. I'm just making shit up. And he's just talking to the headset, and on the background, the computer just goes, writing a note, cool, write a summary, boom, done. And a doctor goes to the next patient. No, we have a doctor who's just reading all that, walks the whole goddamn hospital, sits down on his little computer. Okay, this patient has this. And like, is that the best use of a medical professional? I mean, is that what they signed up for, and they 5 years got them medical studies and whatever there was on the specialization to just do admin most of the time? I don't think that's exciting, really.
And how do they like find out past things? So like, someone comes in and you see the bloody nose. You're like, okay, she seems to have a bloody nose every Friday when her husband drinks. Okay, we've got that part down. But then you've also got the other part. where like, they've had symptoms in 2022 that seems to be progressed. Like, how do you even find out what happened in the history? Is it like on a CRM? Is it hard to find?
And that's the thing. Like it's currently you would need to browse the systems, and that's what it takes time to the doctors. Doctors, they might have 15-minute appointments, but they sometimes just need to spend time later on to fill up all of the information and fill up all of the data. And if there was just an easy system where they just pull up one patient and it just have, I don't know, simple tabs. Here is a summary of everything, all of the information you can have about this particular patient, all the way from when the system exists, including, I don't know, dental, because they might have infection in the tooth, I don't know. And then you go there to a site and you have some tabs of filtering. Cool. I don't need the dental. I just need family history. You click in and suddenly out of 100 information, you have 4. It's all data management, and, it's been done many, many times. I think this traditional industries like farming and health particularly are harder, not because it's impossible, but it's the cost of transition. And that cost of transition is very often is human. And very often, I just read recently on New Zealand Herald that some hospital transitioned to the new system for $80 million, and they complain that shit is not working, and they're very upset, and everything slows them down. Well, realistically, that's a cost of transition. You have to realize that when the first time you went to ChatGPT and you asked, what's the color of a cow, it would tell you pink because it didn't learn that yet. But everyone was excited, cool, because innovation. But because health is so overwhelmed and so busy, people are just frustrated. It's visible that it's hard. And I would absolutely hate to put anything else on health professional, but it needs to be done. The transition needs to be done, because it's the last thing I want to see is, in the next 20 years, you're going to have kids and looking like, Mommy, are you really a health professional? Because you're sitting at a computer all day. You're never seeing patients. Well, because I'm reviewing the records all day. That's all I do. So then are you motivated to be a doctor? I want to be an open heart surgeon, but I do open heart surgery once a week. The rest, I'm just writing papers.
That's insane. Like when you think about it, so you're sitting there, you got someone in front of you asking questions, and then you got to go scroll through 20 years of some handwritten thing and some like pictures of stuff, and then you got to work out, and then you might not have the family and they might not link.
Yeah, and that's sometimes you'll just miss this. And I know it's been a few years, and potentially some things change. But I've been in a hospital for kidney stones in Hamilton, and then I was in the same thing in Auckland, and they didn't know anything about Hamilton case. It was just it didn't exist in Auckland Hospital. So while I told them that, and then they just digged it out, and it was a few years ago, and probably it's changed now with health and systems that they're working on, but it's not changed to a degree where ideally you would have all of the information in one place. Because if you do, then innovation is a piece of cake. Because all it is just getting smart people and looking at the database and finding anything that repeats, and then just showing it to the user. Look, you gave me symptoms. They repeated 155,000 times in the past, and in 87% of cases, that was a flu.
Yeah, damn, man, that's so upsetting. Because I think as well, like it would be useful in the health system to be proactive and be more nutrition focused. Like I went into a doctor, I was fat. I'm still fat now, but I'm less fat. And I posed the idea to him. I'm like, I don't like going to the doctor, but what I would like to do is if I meet you consistently, we do blood work, and we actually proactively try to identify if something's going to be wrong, and we fix it. And then if you had the right system and the right process and made that efficient, anyways, I'm being a bit idealistic, but what's a specific use case that was one of the biggest productivity lift in a health thing that you've done?
Oh, that was definitely the digitizing of paper forms. We've done, is it? I don't actually know what I can tell. It's something called MyTest. And MyTest is originally was just a paper form. You'll go to the lab, and the lab would say, you need a doctor to get your sugar level. And he'll be like, well, do I need to go to the doctor? Can I do it here? And I say, yeah, you can, but you have to pay for it. And then you have to fill up the paperwork, and then you have to pay with manual payment, and then they would do the test. So not only admin for people, for customers, but also you just end up with a piece of paper that someone needs to transition. So we just essentially created and call it e-commerce. It's called MyTest, and for customer for the lab company, and people do that. People order it all the time because it's and I'm probably going to get canceled by GPs now, but it's just quicker to go and get your cholesterol level or whatever sugar level to do on a website, and then go to your lab in the next 5 minutes, rather than go to GP for $37.50, rather than go and schedule an appointment with your GP, wait for 6 weeks, and then get it for free, and pay $50 for the GP.
Yeah. Well, it's me. So I go to them, and then I go get the labs, and I come back to him. What do you think of them? You know what I mean? Like, it's just a big redundant process.
Yeah, it's I don't know. In my head, that's what I said. Like, I would hate to be a doctor, because I mean, how many times can you see a kid with a flu and just be like, come on, that could have been a nurse? Honestly, like, I get that. I get that the doctors need to be there, but if we just created the right technology, and I'm sure it's going to happen eventually, it's just slow. The doctors would do something exciting. They can just go and be like, well, why do you have this fork in your eye? Shit, now I'm just going to do something exciting. I'm going to go to surgery, or I don't know. Something.
Did you have a violent upbringing or something? A lot of bloody noses and forks and eyes, mate. Jesus.
I just couldn't think of anything that like a deadly cancer. So I was like, it's probably not worth mentioning.
Yeah, probably better than the fork. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think there's much more opportunities for doctors just to do something exciting and just be proactive too. It's exactly what you're saying. I mean, shouldn't we get like an email every year? You're 37 this year. You should be doing this, and this test in order to prolong your life, and you don't have to go to the doctor, because proactively we're checking whether you have the right sugar level, so you have a right cholesterol. Why not? Why we don't have the technology? Because we don't have enough data to create these patterns. I mean, we probably do. I bet there's American startup in Silicon Valley right now raising $500 million to do that.
Probably, yeah. Well, just a few more things then on some innovation that could be possible that is limited. Yeah. Like if you had a single source of truth, everything was all teed up. What else would you like to see?
I would definitely go with farming, because food is one of those things that is always going to be needed, and everybody needs food. And we always battling this famous feeding 50 billion people by 2050. 10 billion people by 2050. And while you can think that doctor's life sucks, imagine to be a farmer. It's the climate change, the diseases coming often from climate change, the prices of petrol or everything else is just, everything is against farming. And the only way you can do that is through innovating the way that how you can help them out in order so they can have a little bit more time and a little bit more space to do things better. And it's anywhere from a cow, chicken, corn, to aquaculture, which is we do, is how can we help them out so long term they can produce more food with the same resources against battling entire essentially environment against them, let alone, politics. You just look at the regulations. I mean, 10 years ago, I was able to go to a farmer down the road and buy raw milk. I can't do that anymore. So, and the reason for that is because farmers are scared. And I'm like, well, probably if you know the regulations, you probably can do something about it. And it's like, well, I don't want to. And that's where that's what I would do, something with technology to help farmers, because, we will always need food.